Hey, good morning. It's Uncle Lou here. Yep, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou, live for you on LouTube today. That's not a LouTube hat. It's a Georgia hat. I'm just used to doing that out of habit, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, yep, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Rankings time today. So, gonna do my rankings video today. Tomorrow, Wednesday, will be a Georgia-Auburn video. Thursday, I will do my SEC preview. Friday, I will do the other top 25 previews. That's the plan for the rest of the week. And then, of course, a live stream Saturday morning during college game day, starting about 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is Uncle Lou time. All right, second playoff poll comes out tonight at 7. I was actually amazed how close I got last week. I got the first 7 exactly right. 8 and 9 were flip-flopped, and I had number 10 wrong. And the first playoff poll is usually the hardest one to predict because you don't have anything to go on. You know, the playoff committee doesn't use the AP poll, the coaches poll, or anything like that. They start fresh. They look at a team's body of work, you know what all they look at, and they come up with a poll. So predicting that first poll, is usually the hardest one to predict because you don't have anything to go on. Now we sort of know where the committee's head is at with some of these teams, and it makes the other polls a little bit easier to do. Of course, we had a lot of losses. Well, we had a few losses last week. They're going to shake up that top 10. So, and again, though, my goal with these rankings is not to predict what the playoff committee will do. These are how I think the rankings should be. So it just so happened that last week, the committee agreed with Uncle Lou. Of course, the committee watches Uncle Lou every day like they're supposed to. You should be doing that too. Yep. Anyway, we're going to do it just like last week. We're going to start with number 1 and work our way down to number 10. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. Now, I'm going to put the first 3 teams up first. Here they are, 1 through 3. No changes here. UGA, Bama, Notre Dame. In my opinion, these are the best 3 teams in the country. I know there's a lot of argument right now over 1 and 2. Not much argument over Notre Dame as far as anyone thinking they should be higher. There are some people who think Notre Dame's overrated, and they keep talking about 2012 when Notre Dame got blown out. Listen, 2012 doesn't matter, okay? And it's mainly Alabama fans that keep bringing that up. Would Alabama lose to Clemson if they played right now? I mean, Clemson beat you last year, right? So quit with the Notre Dame 2012 thing. It doesn't have anything to do with 2017, okay? In my opinion, these are the top 3 teams in America. What did they do last week? Georgia played a home game against South Carolina. South Carolina came in ranked 6 and 2. Georgia beats them 24-10. Alabama has a home game against LSU. LSU's record was 6 and 2. Alabama beat LSU 24-10. If you want to argue with me that LSU is a better team than South Carolina, so therefore Alabama's win is more impressive, I guess you can make that argument if you want to. I think LSU was ranked in the top 25. South Carolina was not. But it's not like Alabama went out and dominated that game to the point of moving ahead of UGA, in my opinion. They both, the score was the same. And you can even look at some things in the Alabama game and they make you scratch your head. LSU had more first downs. LSU had more time of possession. LSU had more yards, outgained Alabama. Now, of course, the goal of a game is to score points, and LSU wasn't able to do that, so I'm not taking anything away from Alabama. I'm just saying if you're comparing 1 and 2 and trying to figure out if you want to make a change, I didn't see anything last week that would make me flip-flop this 1 and 2 team. Notre Dame, now who'd they play? Wake Forest, and they won 48-37. Kind of surprised they gave up that many points to Wake Forest. And I'll be honest with you, it's possible that Notre Dame drops to number 4 in the real playoff poll that comes out tonight. I could see that happening based on some things I'll talk about here in a second when we get to this next set of teams. I'm leaving them at 3, mainly because I believe Notre Dame could beat the teams that are right behind them in this poll and in what I think the playoff poll will be tonight. So that's teams 1, 2, and 3. I think those are the best 3 teams. All right, what I'm going to put up now is let's put up, let's see, which ones do I want to put up now? Let's put up 4, 5, 6, and 7. Here's 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now, this is where this poll gets a little tricky to me. I'm pretty confident in 1, 2, and 3. Okay? I feel pretty confident that my top 3 teams, Georgia, Alabama, and Notre Dame, would beat any team ranked below them in my poll on a neutral field if they played right now. I'm pretty confident in that. Teams 4, 5, 6, and 7, it gets a lot harder to differentiate between these teams here. Clemson, Oklahoma, TCU, Wisconsin. If any 4 of those teams played each other, those are games, in my opinion, that could go either way. Wisconsin could beat Clemson, Clemson could beat Wisconsin. TCU could beat Oklahoma, Oklahoma could beat TCU. Clemson could beat TCU, TCU could beat Clemson. You get what I'm saying. It's hard for me really to differentiate these teams. I left Clemson at number 4 because they had a win over a pretty good NC State team last week. They won 38-31 against NC State. NC State, of course, had lost the week before to Notre Dame. So 2 tough losses there for NC State. But still, a pretty good win for Clemson. And I don't think any of the teams behind them did anything to jump them. So you can see my top 4 is the same as last week. Georgia, Alabama, Notre Dame, and Clemson. Clemson plays Florida State at home this weekend. They should be able to handle them. I'll talk more about that game on Friday in my top 25 preview. Oklahoma beat Oklahoma State 62-52. What a worthless game. It's not even really football that they're playing. It's like Arena League. 62-52. It was 38-38 halfway through the second quarter. Neither team even trying to play any defense. That's a big reason why it's hard to take Oklahoma or Oklahoma State seriously in a national title conversation. I know Oklahoma's sitting at the 1 loss. They beat Ohio State. That win doesn't look nearly as good anymore as it did 2 weeks ago, of course, with Ohio State taking a beating to Iowa this last weekend. So, like I said, if you want to put Oklahoma at 4 and Clemson at 5, I can see where you could do that. I have Clemson 4, Oklahoma 5, but no defense for Oklahoma at all. I have TCU next. They handled Texas 24-7. You could put TCU ahead of Oklahoma. I mean, that's what I mean with these teams 4, 5, 6, and 7. They have a lot in common, these teams here. They beat Texas 24-7. Now, they play at Oklahoma this week, so this is going to get settled this week, TCU and Oklahoma. One of these teams will be probably moving up, and one of these teams will be moving probably out of the top 10, or at least all the way down to the bottom of the top 10, depending on what else happens. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here debating between TCU and Oklahoma when they're getting ready to play. Then I have Wisconsin. Wisconsin impressed me. They beat Indiana, and they beat them bad, 45-17. I've been rough on Wisconsin. Not a believer in Wisconsin. Said they weren't winning games by as much as what I thought they should be. Not the case last weekend. They came out and absolutely destroyed Indiana, 45-17. Now they get Iowa this week. Of course, Iowa coming off that big win against Ohio State last week, but this game's in Wisconsin at Camp Randall, so I'll talk more about that on Friday. But we'll see. But you could have Wisconsin as high as 4. I mean, there are arguments to be made for Wisconsin, and I think to be as high as 4. Anywhere in the 4, 5, 6, 7 range, though, it's hard to argue between these 4 teams, in my opinion. And that brings us to the bottom 3 in the top 10 anyway. So 8, 9, and 10. Here you go. Number 8, Miami. Number 9, Washington. Number 10, Auburn. This was pretty hard, too, especially number 10. There's a lot of teams that can lay claim to this 10 spot. A lot of teams. And I'll try to do my best to explain why I did what I did. I have Miami at 8. I have, like Wisconsin, I've been rough on Miami. I wasn't a believer. I picked them to lose against Virginia Tech. They came out and won 28-10. So hats off to Miami. I thought they would lose that game, and they didn't. They won it. So they impressed me a little bit. It turns out Miami might be a little bit better than what I thought they were. Now, they play Notre Dame this week. It's in Miami. Game day will be there. I'll pick that game on Friday, but if you've been paying attention to me over the last few weeks, you probably know where I'm leaning in this game here. But if for some reason Miami finds a way to pull that game out, then they're going to be moving way up, without question. There will be no way to deny it at that point. But that's where we're at right now. Washington, I have them sitting at number 9. They beat the bejesus out of Oregon 38-3, a terrible Oregon team. Now, they play at Stanford this week. If Washington can somehow win that game at Stanford, then they're definitely going to win out up until the Pac-12 title game. This is their last decent team they play is Stanford. Stanford, not a world beater. They do have an all-world running back, Bryce Love or whatever. Could be an interesting game at Stanford. I think this is a Friday night game too. And you know how I feel about these weeknight games. Hard to pick against the home team in these big weeknight games. I see Clemson and Syracuse if you don't believe me. And a couple other examples this year too. So that's going to be a good game. I'll have a prediction on that. What day did I say? Friday when I do the top 25. But Washington's sitting at number 9. They have one loss to Arizona State, a terrible Arizona State team. They're 500, aren't they? Arizona State, maybe 5-4. I don't know what happened to Washington in that game. They lost 13-7. You look at the rest of Washington games, they're scoring 30, 40 points a game. So I don't know what happened there. But bottom line is, Washington has 0 quality wins, none. Stanford will be the best team they've played. We'll see what they do. And number 10, Auburn, of course, beat Texas A&M 42-27, an impressive win at Texas A&M. And of course, they play Georgia this week. There's a lot of teams you can put in the 10 spot. Ohio State, Oklahoma State. I thought about putting UCF here, Central Florida. They're undefeated, but no, they don't really have any big wins either. So I really couldn't justify that. Auburn, 2 losses. Was an 8-point loss to Clemson, right? And 4-point loss to LSU. LSU loss, kind of hard to explain. Kind of hard to just forget that happened, but it did. If it wasn't for that LSU loss, Auburn would probably be a top 5 team right now. 6 at the worst, I would imagine. But you can't pretend something didn't happen. It did happen. You can make a case for them being the best 2-loss team, so that's why I have them here at number 10. They play Georgia at home this week. Big game for Auburn. Gus Malzahn's career or job could be on the line. We'll see. Alabama plays at Mississippi State. Georgia plays at Auburn. So two pretty tough games for the 1 and 2 team this week, Mississippi State and Auburn. But anyway, that's it. That's my top 10. The playoff poll comes out tonight at 7 o'clock. You can watch it on ESPN. We'll see how many the committee gets right based on what I've just shown you here, and how many they get wrong. Good games this week. I mean, there's going to be some changes. There's going to be some changes in the poll next week no matter what happens, because you got TCU and Oklahoma playing. You got Notre Dame and Miami playing. So you've got 2 matchups of top 10 teams next week. So there's probably going to be 2 teams on this list that fall out of the top 10 this week, which means there's going to be 2 teams that aren't on this list that are in it next week. So, I mean, when you start getting down to the end like this, I mean, crazy stuff happens. Anything can happen. Teams with 1 loss right now, no margin for error, none. If you've got 1 loss right now, you're playing for your life. So I'm talking to you, Notre Dame, Clemson, Oklahoma, TCU, Washington, all these teams with 1 loss that think they still have a chance to make the playoff. You've got no room for error. My opinion, the only 2 teams in America right now with room for error are Alabama and Georgia. I'll talk more about this when I do the previews, but I'll just mention it now. Alabama and Georgia both could lose this weekend. They drop a little in the poll, but if they win the rest of their games, they're still making the playoff. Don't kid yourself, okay? Georgia's already locked up the East. If we lose to Auburn and then beat Kentucky and Georgia Tech and beat whoever in the SEC championship game, we're back in the top 4. Same for Alabama. If they lose to Mississippi State, but then turn around and win their last 2 games and win the SEC championship against Georgia, Alabama's back in the top 4. So those are the only 2 teams I think right now with room for error. Any of these other teams here, you're playing for your playoff life this weekend. So anyway, to be a good weekend of games, there it is, the official Uncle Lou College Football Playoff Poll, second edition. Have a good morning.